New details tonight on the Trump Justice Department's secret record sweep on two Democratic lawmakers and the White House counsel. Sources tell me and my colleagues Evan Perez and Jeremy Erb that the subpoena that swept up those records appears to have been the result of a leak investigation into people they were talking to and not into the lawmakers or lawyer themselves. Let's bring in CNN's Evan Perez, who is covering this story. You know, Evan, we've covered DOJ for a long time, and when the details of this first came out, we thought something isn't exactly adding up here because leadership in DOJ claimed to have not known anything about this. So tell us what more we've learned.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have spent hours and hours the last week or so since this story broke trying to talk to people, the former officials in the department, and everybody seems to be in the dark as to how this happened and why it seems like nobody was briefed on that. And what we've learned is that it appears that this was an investigation, or at least scrutinizing a former staffer, high-level staffer on the House Intelligence Committee. This is somebody who's close to Adam Schiff, and so as a result of that, it appears the FBI and prosecutors were trying to identify some of the contacts that this staffer had. And of course, when Apple returned this more than 100 contacts that the staffer had, one of them was Adam Schiff, who's now the chairman of that committee, as well as Eric Swalwell, who's also another prominent member on that committee. And of course, these are two people who were prominent critics of the former president, and why there has been so much suspicion that this was an effort to spy on these Democratic lawmakers, that this was an effort to essentially go after them for some of their criticism of the president. What we've learned is that it appears to have been some kind of bureaucratic snafu, right? This is something, at least, again, there's a lot to be learned here. We still don't know everything that happened here, but it appears that because these members were not being targeted in this investigation or as part of this, that those notifications didn't quite bubble up to the right people in the leadership of the Justice Department. And as a result, members of Congress were in the dark, and that's why you see there's so much criticism now from those members about how they learned about this, which was they got an email from Apple.
And I was told by a source familiar the same situation applied to Don McGahn. They didn't know when they went to Apple that they were getting his records. They were investigating someone else. But what does all this tell you about how DOJ handles politically sensitive investigations? Well,
I think what you're beginning to see from Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Attorney General, is that now they're doing a bigger effort to try to see if they can understand and learn about other possible investigations, politically sensitive investigations that perhaps senior officials were not told about, did not sign off on. I call it an effort to see where the other bodies are buried, because the concern that the new leadership of Justice Department has, they've only been in office now about 100 days, is that there are other there are other things here that they haven't told members of Congress, perhaps, that they need to brief people on, that they just don't know about. And so one of the things Lisa Monaco is doing is reviewing the procedures that applied to these investigations to see whether there needs to be some changes, whether there is something needs to be more explicit to make sure that agents and prosecutors brief the right people about these probes.
Right, especially if you know you're investigating someone who is in politics, you will probably keep up records.
Right, it raises separation of powers issues,
exactly.
Right? Members of Congress and, of course, the executive branch.